rapidly shifting society, now more than ever, it is essential to stay grounded. Balance is key, but harmony is better. Here, we provide the keys to tap into the divine masculine without sacrificing the divine feminine, because confusion not transmuted becomes confusion transferred.
This is Divine Masculine Activated, a weekly Tuesday evening tap-in brought to you by Mastermind Connect and curated by the good brothers J.D. Weatherspoon and Courtney Grange. We invite you to grab your activation method of choice, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and bring your whole self into this space.
Yo,
What on?
welcome back to the Divine Playground.
I like how they say that. You know what I'm saying?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, pronouns of all ages, welcome to the season 3 finale of Divine Masculine Activated. I am Courtney Grange. He is
Your favorite rapper's favorite A&R.
AKA
And also let me skip the fanfare. JD, man, I'm happy and excited. Got a new hat.
Leo
Completely
hat.
ostentatious.
Here we go already.
We here, man. What's buzzing, cousin?
Oh man, life is good, man. Just coming off a weekend of my grandmother's 95th birthday, so I am overjoyed with family abundance at this point in time.
Oh, you're all Grange stronged up. You know, with y'all pithy family t-shirts and hoodies.
Listen, grandma is a diehard women's UConn basketball fan.
That's
So
intense.
it's only right. It's only right.
So we gotta have merch.
Had to. And had to put them joints on and have the mayor of Bloomfield, Connecticut come through to know that it's real.
We had to sit in the back though, so they know who really runs the show here. It's my birthday.
Oh man, we are excited to be here to close out this season 3 with y'all live and in living color. I
Right.
see y'all in the chat already. Hey, Stefan, welcome to the party.
Welcome.
The lovely
Yep.
SJ Sequoia Young. What's up, love? We here. We
Honorary
doing what we
members.
do
We need
best.
like a virtual VIP section for
You know what I'm
Sequoia to sit
saying?
in.
We should have like drinks and libations and all types of
That's what I'm saying.
activation methods.
At least we can get you something from the store. Like we going to the gas station, we can get you like some gum or a bag of chips, just purely
That's
out of
it.
appreciation.
That's what we
No.
have.
So we here, like we about to close out season 3, and
Man.
you know it only seemed fitting that we throw it back a bit.
You know,
It's been a ride. It's been a fun experimentation. It's been a lovely, I would say, exercise in the growth and the opportunity to really get into the nitty gritty of playing with these tech platforms that we have to bring this to y'all. But it felt only right to make at least one session from this season, you know, in the original format that we got the people who know us and love us accustomed to observing, right? Which brings us to today, right? It's the paradox.
for me,
Right, and for you, if we're gonna be honest with you. And so as you're watching, make sure to tell somebody to like, to subscribe, and to share this episode with somebody you love. And if you can't stand them, you know, share it with them anyway, and maybe you'll love them afterwards because they'll learn how to deal with polarities and paradoxes.
shots
So
fired.
let's grind. Right. So let's ground this out. Like, what are we here to do? Right? Like, what is DMA for those who are uninitiated? Well, Divine Masculine Activated is, you know, we wanted to create a space where we could activate masculine energy without sacrificing the feminine energy, right? Why is that? It's because our nurturing as men has taught us that anything feminine is typically reserved for women, and that masculinity is about being hard, forceful, and choosing logic over empathy. So we created this to unpack what we've been taught about masculinity and reshape how we think about femininity.
Ta-da. And why do we do this in this center of this reality at this time, right? Season 3 was all around alt blackness As we designed this theme for this season, it was all about exploring the different aspects of Blackness that have been more recently traditionally reserved for whiteness, right? And the abundances that go with taking back, Sankofaing, what was once the greatness that we were bound to create, explore, and put together. So everything from art, culture, family, business, technology, music, and everything in between and everything into the future. And so alt black for us is the true representation of what it means to be a sovereign, divine, masculine, and feminine balanced individual. And so with that said, it brings us to our episode topic today. It's the paradox for me. And when we look at a paradox, it's a little bit different than a polarity. You know what I'm saying? Polarities may get you.
I was about to say, let's run back to polarity for those who might just be discovering what we talk about.
Polarity might get you this or that, right? Two kind of, let's say, competing opposites. Whereas a paradox is more so something to be managed. It's two things that may not necessarily be in direct harmony with one another, but they are both necessary. An example of that, which we'll touch on later, is something like love and desire. Because in a relationship, you want both, and you're not really willing to sacrifice one for the other. And if you are, it's part of the conversation we're going to have today, too. You feel me?
That part.
So how are we kicking this thing off, brother?
Okay, well, like we're kicking it off by getting the good folks warmed up. Peace, Omari. What's going on?
What up, good brother?
Right. We really wanted to get into how we're going to tackle the paradox of paradoxes, which is the angst that we feel when we have and we desire equally. That which we have now versus that which we want to have and are working towards, but that is not quite present yet, right? The gap between what our soul desires and what we actually do and how that may or may not align with what we want to do and how we want to spend our energy, right? That gap is what we're here to focus on. And so there's definitely that yin yang, once again, feminine and masculine relationship between having and desiring. Is it a problem or is it a paradox? And I think today it's going to be a great opportunity for folks to dig into how they can better adjust their mindset to more effectively manage the paradoxes that they may have. I know it typically works for me. And so I guess we're going to start it off from where I would like to sit, which is the big picture, so we can zoom in, right? Fulfillment. The premise we're going to start with on that is the Japanese concept of Ikigai. Ikigai is Japanese concept referring to something that gives a person a sense of purpose or reason for living. In French, raison d'être, right?
Oh, look at you being fancy with the wordplay on the tag.
Look, man, I'm just trying to stay sucker free in a world full of lollipops.
You straight in Indian here, my G.
You understand me? But whenever I think of the paradox of what we want, what we need, and how we invest our energy moving towards what we think is either of those, it brings to mind like that J. Cole quote, where it's like, yo, the good news is you came a long way. The bad news is you went the wrong way. Because 10,000 miles worth of progress is moving forward. That doesn't necessarily mean that you went in the right direction.
Yo,
and that's a cold realization.
Listen, after a weekend with so many of my family, that concept really rings true when you think of like, just because you old don't mean you an elder.
That's a whole nother episode.
Everyone with age lived does not necessarily equate to wisdom to teach the next generation. So,
right,
just, hold that, Jim, and we'll get back to it a little bit later.
Exactly.
Yes. Wholly and truly Japanese and French within less than 30 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, JB, aka the walking encyclopedia.
I'm here for you.
So yeah.
You going in or you want to dive in? You lead this expedition?
Hold on, what you got? My own from the weekend, I saw the same thing. Listen, we often live parallel lives out this joint, my friend. But now for me, that one right there, when I think about coming a long way but going the wrong way, it hits me in my career more than any other place, because that's probably where I have learned the most with regards to the concept of Ikigai. When you look at, like, and I'll bring it back up so people can see it again, the part at the top where it's like that which you love, that which you can get paid for. And career for me has largely been about what I can get paid for, like what I'm good at.
As it is for most of us. Yeah,
Very little
we're
to
taught
do
that we got to go get it, whatever the it in question is.
Whatever the it in question is, you got to go get it. And I did that for years until going and getting didn't give enough. And so flipped it, backed it up, reversed it, chose other avenues to approach the career, took some opportunities, took some risks, made some gambles, rolled a few dice. And along the way, it just continuously pushed me closer and closer and closer to that which I love, because you can't run from that one. And if you don't have something that you love, challenging careers will really put you in a position to ask yourself the question, like, why am I here? Why am I?
What is this for?
What is this for? Because this money is not going to do but so much for me. And so at this point, I've right-sized that pretty well. I would say in the journey of self-mastery, like we talk about the balance between masculine and feminine energy in this space all the time. That's probably the last stronghold of incongruent thinking that I still am working through, and it's a paradox. It's definitely a paradox because, I work in tech by day, and any person of color, pretty much anybody, but specifically for people of color in tech, they understand what I mean when I say these golden handcuffs, because tech can get you very,
you can be comfy.
Connected, and not comfy, yes, but connected to a certain lifestyle that is so far removed from like what most people are experiencing, that the way that the industry is designed to mentally work you. And I was having this conversation with some family members because my family are traditionally farmers. The way that they mentally work you is very similar to the way that farming physically works you. So imagine a farmer over many, many years, their body breaking down. In this space, in the tech space, it's this.
And in except you don't necessarily get control over your own harvest, right? Because it's more like sharecropping, if you're going to be honest.
In a sense, very, very lucrative, financially lucrative sharecropping, but in terms of like the ability to understand your intellectual property, the ability to transfer your skill sets and your areas of expertise into other areas, it just becomes more challenging the more you stay in it. And that's probably the biggest one for me. Corporate has been very beneficial to me, but it doesn't really take years off my life. It takes a lot more vision off my sight. And learning that and learning what to do about it is like, all right, that's the new paradox to manage. It's like, how much sight am I really willing to give up? Because I was designed to see a certain distance, right? My gifts, my superpowers, power of connectivity, things we've talked about in other seasons. Like, I hold that very, very sacred to myself. And it's like, look, if I'm gonna barter this with y'all, it's gonna be for a time frame, and I'm gonna get what's mine. You're gonna get what you need from me, and we both gonna chuck these in a way that is harmonious because I say so.
Sounds like a really good one-night stand.
Oh, that lasts for if one night had, let's see, how many hours are in 14 years? But yeah, man, that's it for me. I throw it back in your court. When you look at, you came a long way, but bad news is you went the wrong way. What's something that comes to mind for you as you think about that paradox?
Oh, definitely the same thing. I mean, like I invested and by extension sacrificed a good chunk of kind of like my younger wonder years with being fully keyed into like becoming a diplomat. Like to the point, like before I even got into college courses, like a lot of my linguistic advancement was self-taught. Just so when I get in, I can wreck it. Like, all right, how do I align myself with the right professors, getting into honors course, just that, right? And then looking at the trajectory of all right, if I want to even be remotely reputable before I start looking at internships, I need experience living abroad. And that's not something that was like immediately accessible from the environment that I grew up in, right? Like, not saying that nobody in my family traveled, but also know out of my immediate family, I was one of these first people with a passport that like used it, right? And then like researching the programs, going and finding it, like independently setting myself up with specific opportunities that allow me to operate in like a foreign affairs space, um, where I can like do projects in conjunction with governments, domestic and foreign, just to get enough like know-how and just a capacity to operate in that space when I get back to the United States. And then like years later, getting back, getting the first like opportunity in that career path and being like, cool, nailed it. I'm in DC now. And now that I'm on the other side of the game, I don't really enjoy any of this.
All this work.
And I just spent 7 years trying to get here.
Yeah, man. Yeah, yep. That's that having and desiring point of the thing, you know?
Right, because you get it, right? You desire, this is what you asked for to an extent. Like this is what you
Right.
wanted. This is what the life is. Here, live it. And it's like, no, that ain't me. I don't want that. It's like, well, can't say you didn't achieve it. So like you get to pat yourself on the back, like job well done, E for effort. But like this ain't you for real. So discovering like, wow, that was a great goal to have. And inevitably, like I learned so much along the way to get there. Ultimately, like all those skills were actually the groundwork for what I ended up doing after my goals and objectives changed. So there was some credit carried over, but it wasn't a direct transfer. Like, nah, bro, you still got to, in the life space and also in the professional capacity space, you got to take some more courses. So
take some more courses. You got to go back.
Right. You're not starting from the 100 level, but you're not at the 1000 level over here. You're at like 350.
Yep. And the funny thing about that is often in that process, they hit you with, oh, and by the way, here are 4 other courses that you were supposed to take in order to be qualified for this work.
Right.
You got to go back and walk those dogs too. So it gets into an interesting place of, having finally what was desired and realizing like, ooh, this thing is not it.
This ain't it.
So on that, I would drop it to the audience like we do when we live. Y'all know how we like to do it. Like when we look at this concept of having and desiring, which do you think is masculine and which do you think is feminine? Of course, we will answer that in a second, but we'd like to give y'all a chance to jump in and give us some comments on that and see how you feel. So when we talk about having and desiring, drop your questions or comments in the chat with us. Which one you think is masculine? Which one you think is feminine? And as we see it come in, we'll scroll back to it for y'all. But moving the needle forward, as we like to do.
Oh, here's another. Okay, so while we wait, under that same banner, back to the Ikigai principle, while we giving folks time to like respond. What is something that you discovered that you were good at, that you're passionate about, but that you couldn't actually get paid for?
So many things.
Right.
Let's see. And that's a tricky one because I think that we actually can get paid for a lot of the things. It's just figuring out how, right? So like, for example, you could take something like for 4.5 years, I ran a nonprofit that was focusing on teaching entrepreneurship to student athletes because the parallels between these two aspects in terms of the skill sets were so similar. My mindset was, well, over time, if we start to push this principle, preach this philosophy, you'll have more student athletes that take advantage of the world of the sport they play as opposed to the positions within the sport they play. I kind of probably did that maybe 3 or 4 years early because now we have the whole aspect of like college athletes being able to get paid for their likeness and renderings. And, you know, that whole world is shifting to where these the student athletes are being cultivated as a brand. We were doing this back in 2013 where it was like people were still pushing, you know, against that narrative. And so we were good at it. You know, we had partnerships with everybody from the NFL to John Wall Family Foundation. We're doing stuff in a lot of different places that made a lot of sense, but I never figured out how to like really capitalize on it. And by the time that it took to learn that was time that, you know, tick, 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 money is just flowing away. So
It all costs money, whether or not the market is ready for your product or
that's
not.
it. Let's get in this one from Richard. I think
Right.
desiring is masculine, to seek, discover, find, etc. So that will mean that the having is feminine. What you think?
I disagree.
Well, looks like Sequoia does too, because she says I think having is feminine.
So I disagree, and here's why.
Uh-huh.
Like desire it's like anticipation, right?
Yeah.
Like the build up going of the roller coaster before you actually hit the drop. I see desire as feminine because like it's the rush of desire. It's the mystery, it's the unknown. Well, like what's you gonna tell me that like any feminine entity is like that consistent and wants to be possessed? You know what I mean? Like it's about like the wonder and that which you don't know.
Yeah.
Versus like the having is like it's in my possession. I got this. I can see what it is. Like it's mine. I see that as a very like it's in my container.
Yeah. I think that, and it's kind of showing up in the comments, like it really does depend on what is the fundamental aspect of masculine and feminine for a person.
Right.
You know, if that, because that can flip flop. Like we talk about that all the time in a sense, but it really does depend on where you first stand with it. And so from our perspective, we tend to look at masculinity as safety, consistency, what is secure, right? And so those are things that you have. You can't desire safety and actually have it at the same time. You either got it or you don't. On the feminine side, we look at femininity to be more about freedom, about desire, about what's coming next, what could happen, possibility. That ain't something that you can have because you have to want it, right? So it all depends on the lens. I think, you know, it comes in from a lot of different perspectives. Our brother Richard jumps back in. I don't think of desire as the rush. I think of it as the motivation. Ooh, it's like conquest. Why do athletes go for more rings? Why do presidents run for a second term? But I see your point. And see, even that, right? Like the rush, the desire to go after more.
So that the ambition.
That isn't, but ambition isn't, to me, ambition's not safe. Ambition is very risky.
Right. Because now we get to like the Icarus parable, right? Like he wanted to fly high close to the sun. Well, all right, cool.
Right.
Well, that come with conditions. Choices got invoices.
Yeah, baby.
So I see them like, all right, cool. Like the mask it's like Papa's rules.
That's
right. Like, all right, cool. Like I'm telling you that when you get home. Like, okay, well the buck stops here.
Hold on.
Yeah, now we got some good. We got some good stuff down here.
Desiring is a mountain, and there's always more mountains behind mountains. Having is already acquired. Full stop.
That's such. Isn't there like a Haitian quote about that? Like beyond mountains, more mountains.
I mean, Stéphane Pierre-Louis is probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I see where that went. Yeah.
I see where
beyond mountains, more mountains.
Oh, yeah, that surely is a word. Look at that.
Yeah, man.
But we appreciate y'all for jumping in for this topic. This is the type of dialogue I can honestly say, brother. Like, I miss this. Like, we don't get to do this as much with the recording. So, give your feelings, your perspective on this topic, because this is what we're here for. We're here to do this together, to learn together. Let's bring it to the next one. So, having and desiring, right? Like we talked about it, but next we were looking at. Ooh, this should be fun. Okay, so we'll jump that back for people in a second. But what we're looking at here again to show y'all, have you seen your ego remain present, relevant to your leadership? The reason we bring that up in the concept of paradox is because when you look at what it takes to be an effective leader, it does require a fair amount of ego. right?
Otherwise, you wouldn't want to be leader. Like
You wouldn't even want to be a leader.
How big is your ego that you want to be president?
And even those who are servant leaders or selfless leaders, right? You can look at that from the perspective of principle. The person in the society who most embodies the principles of that society is technically the leader of that society. But you got to have the ego to embody principles at a high level, right? That's back to what we talk about being self-considerate. I have to consider myself a whole hell of a lot to have enough energy to pour into other people at a high level.
Yes, and there is a sense of gratification, like self-gratification, that servant leaders get from acts of service.
Absolutely.
It's not like it's actually not selfless at all. It's that healthy overlap between selfless and selfish, and they sort of meet here. Like, it makes me happy to see that the thing that I helped you with helped you win. Like, even if I'm in the back and I'm behind the camera, it's like there is that element of, look what I did, look what we accomplished. But I'm totally like there's a very real like getting off, so to speak, by supporting the team. You know what I mean? It's like, for a prime example, my mother is incredibly loving and considerate, and like she one of her biggest things for major occasions is handwriting cards, because she appreciates shut up, Manny. Because
we love you, brother.
We love you back, bro. But she loves the act of handwriting cards, because it's personal.
It's intimate.
Right? Exactly. It's very intimate. Like, and so she'll spend God knows how many hours every holiday season making sure that like 30 to 50 people locally and spread across the country get a handwritten card for Christmas. That's not just to give you a card because you feel important. It's also because she really enjoys writing cards.
And I bet she does that no matter what's on her plate at that time.
Oh, she always got time for them cards, baby.
You see what I'm saying? And that,
baby,
from my perspective, like, that is where ego comes in. And I think we talk about that in a lot of different ways, but like, ego, while problematic, is not necessarily always unhealthy.
Yeah, well, that's like medication versus dosage.
That's right. Yeah.
Like 1 to 2 liters of water a day is really good for you. 10,000 liters of water all at once, it's probably not going to be too good for your health.
Oh yeah. Listen, and anyone who has ever had to like hydrate, like the actual process, not like, oh, let me drink about, no, like you're in an environment where you have to hydrate to get through the environment. You know that there's that fine line between like, I've drunk enough water to get me through this, and like, this has
become disruptive. Exactly.
Become disruptive. That's right.
I got to be every 15 minutes.
And yes, Stefan, I agree. Anything handwritten is better, far and away. Absolutely. 1,000%.
In cursive at that, because who knows how to read that anymore?
Who knows how to write that anymore?
I got a 7-year-old. It's not going to be pretty.
My cursive is A1, but I can tell you right now, my son's school does not teach it at all. So, the legacy dies with me. Oh, man. But I think this is an interesting topic to bring the audience in as well. Like, when you talk about leadership, your leadership in the areas in which you do lead, do you see or recognize where your ego is present in it? Or do you feel like your ego is not a part of your leadership?
Oh, yeah, that's a good open question. That's a good one.
Let's see what they come with. And while they're digging into that one, we are going to push the conversation a little bit more forward. What do we have next on here? It's one of these topics we was thinking about.
I mean, I like the idea of, so like, let's make it more accessible. Like, big ego as it relates to like poor leadership, and big ego as it's related to like a lot of successful endeavors, right?
Ooh, come on.
Right. Because case in point, like Deion Sanders,
big ego,
massive ego. He's also, and you can see if you look at like his trajectory from player to coach.
Yep.
You get to see like that whole hero's journey. At first, it's just, listen, young hotshot out of Fort Myers, Florida.
I'm gonna do what I do.
I'm prime time, baby. And now it's like, no, man, I'm Coach Deion, and I'm actually here to use my skills and my platform and my connections and my general objectively impressive raw ass talent
Mm-hmm.
to shift this entire landscape for a whole bunch of people.
Whole bunch of people. Yep.
Alternatively, you have
Uh-huh.
an Elon Musk.
So timely with that word.
They both have huge egos.
Huge egos. Yeah. And you know what I would also say to that too? I'm not necessarily sure that put in the same position that Dion would not be Elon Musk and vice versa. I think lived experience, right? Like Elon Musk, when you look at where he comes from versus where Dion comes from, the concept of community, the concept of like, I'm not here on my own. And so therefore, no matter how big my ego is, there's a certain
you're still beholden to the cradle that puts you in that position.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the cradle just gets bigger and bigger the more the ego gives you access to be on the stage. Whereas I think for Elon, it's a little different. A managed big ego based on a proven track record can lead to more desire to have more accomplished.
More mountains.
That's it. More mountains, more mountains. Never be satisfied. 1000%. But I think that's the path of someone who chooses that. And that's kind of where the paradox conversation comes back in. When you look at the difference between a paradox and a polarity, while they're both about choice, in a polarity, like we've shown it before, in a polarity, you kind of go in an infinity symbol. You got to go back and forth through the polarity. An example of that would be something like the necessity of sleep when you have a really big deadline. At some point, you have to manage the polarity of sleeping in order to be in the right mindset to hit the deadline. Or you push past it and you don't sleep and then you crash at the end of it, right? So the goal would be to remain in that kind of balance between the two.
Mm-hmm.
With a paradox, you really do have to choose back and forth. It's almost like code switching, so to speak. In this moment, I choose this. In this moment, I choose this. Or in this moment, because of my principles or because of what I believe, I choose this, and vice versa. And so, yeah, Manny, I think that point is spot on. Sequoia, what you're saying. My ego plays a part in wanting to make sure that the collective is taken care of before I am. I think that's that self-considerate piece, you know?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, myself included, can have a tendency to be overgivers. You know, like even with your mom with the handwritten notes. Like, yes, that's about the other person, but me pleasing someone else is absolutely stroking my ego.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Soft power, still power.
Team can't sleep.
But see, no. So I wanna revert back to like what Sequoia said about like my ego plays a part. Like my ego definitely plays a part in it. I think that's where getting into the self-considerate space of there's still limits on that.
Yeah.
Because beyond a certain point, like if I sort of empty out that vessel without having something that fills up that love tank, then you end up running on E, and that selflessness that derives pleasure from taking care of the collective.
Mm-hmm.
Can you get the inverse of that with like, y'all sucking me dry, and I don't like y'all no more.
And be clear, like everyone's fuel ain't the same.
Right.
Right.
Some people don't have it's not a battery, it's just a switch. Like when it's on,
yeah,
it's on.
man. And that's back to Elon Musk. If anyone has ever ran out of electricity in a Tesla, that's a totally different situation of importance than it is running out of gas in a car that takes gasoline.
Right. That's a really, really heavy parable right there.
Yo.
Now let me use this gas powered generator to charge up my car.
If you can even find a generator to charge, like you can more presently push a car to a local gas station than you can get that car to get a Tesla to a charging station. Like we're not even there yet. Everyone's fuel ain't the same. That's right. All right. So let's take this to the next one. What conversation? What topic we got next, brother? Oh, I think that's the Shango and no, Ose Tura. So put this up here for y'all. We'll run it back a couple times. Osetura is from Ifa, the Ifa tradition or the Isheshe tradition that JD and I both practice. And it is what is considered Odu Ifa. Odu is like the spiritual power. Osetura is one of the spiritual powers that exist within Odu Ifa. There are 256. This is one of them. It's very close and personal to JD. So I'll let him kind of tap y'all in on the importance of Osetura while I bring this back up so you can see it again.
Okay. Well, I mean, just cliff notes. It is actually Oseotura is the name of a child, specifically a boy born of Oshun. And he played a pivotal role, like his birth, actually, as it relates to Oshun specifically, played a pivotal role in, like, mythologically, the creation of the world as we know it, right? Long and short, the original founding entities known as, like, Orisha were sent to Earth, getting ready for human habitation. Oshun, being the only female or feminine presence in the bunch, was ignored and left out of the process. So she decided to say, cool, I'm going to chill over here by myself, go wash my clothes, go chill, and I'm going to let your plans fall through the cracks. People ended up having to apologize profusely for not involving her in the process because went up shaking without her hand on it. And as a result, Oseotura, the child, came to be. And the manifestation of, like, principle from a spiritual perspective essentially was centered around, what's the word I'm looking for? Discernment and intentionality with the way that we use our words, because our words are part of, or one of our, I would say, strongest tools for manifestation. Mm-hmm. And so Osetura, anyone who's hung around Courtney and I for long enough, he'll chat it at me in a very snide way, just being cheeky, because it's like, mind your words and observe your tone. Shut up. And so hence that the art of a patient tongue. So the premise is all about just knowing that everything that we say and do has echoes that reverberate beyond where we presently are. And this can affect people in ways that can either, help us or hurt us, simply because what we say and do can either help or hurt those around us, right? We have to be mindful of the collective while also still attending to, like, the desire for self-expression on behalf of the individual. Thinking of the overlap with Ikigai, right? I want to bring it back to center on that. Mm-hmm. At the core of the want, the desire, the professional aspects, the mission, the passions, but also, like, the vocation, all of those revolve around relationships, beginning with one's relationship to self. Yeah. Many of us will have many relationships over the span of a lifetime, and not all of those last for the entire lifetime. Actually, most of our relationships will not last the duration of what our lifespan is. Sure. I've found that I've learned just as much from the relationships that failed or simply ended than I did from the ones that are still in continuation. Either way, relationships, much like business, it's like walking shadow work. Because when you're around other people with different worldviews, like, you're going to come into clashes and they're going to highlight aspects of your personality, specifically mine, that you may not necessarily care to deal with. Like, so my question for you, Courtney, is how did, like, past failed relationships help you identify your shadow aspects?
The reason I snicker so heavily at that is because past relationships are literally the way that I discovered, came front and center, and had to put into check all of my shadow aspects. Mostly because, they always talk about the honeymoon period in relationships, or the time period between when you meet somebody and you're being exposed to their representatives, to the point where everyone gets safe, masculine. And their true, or I would say honest, not true, honest self shows up. And then that is where like you can't fake the funk. You can't hide from what is right in front of your eyes, and you have to face it on both sides of that equation. Um, I can say that in years prior to 33, I'm 37 now. Years prior to 33, I was very ill-equipped for what I was faced with once this person became honest and I became honest. Years post 33, I've become very, very, very astute at the patience necessary to reveal myself to someone because you can't do all of that up front. And that's kind of the paradox in it, right? Like, it's not always that you're going to just be exposed to someone's representatives. It's that I have an entire lived life prior to you showing up in my path. And for me to communicate all of that to you whilst still living that life and trying to spend time and learn about you is almost impossible. Like, I can't give you the dossier on me and expect you to like fully internalize that joint in 30 days. I can't give it to you in, 30 years, to speak, because I'm going to be constantly changing and updating that dossier as well. So for me, a lot of that shadow work that came in 20s, early 30s, over the course of my marriage before I was divorced, the course of like transitioning that marriage into what I consider to be marriage 2.0, which is co-parenting, because keep it a buck, anyone who has a child with someone they are not in partnership with and they're making that work in some way, like, you still married, bro. Like, it's still a union. It's still a covenant of some kind that you have to figure out a way to honor.
And that etch a sketch can't be undid, man. Like, there's no court order that could take that away. That's born in blood.
Yeah, you etch a sketching with a Sharpie with that one. So those things taught me a lot about my shadow self, about my ego. And there was a time where my best friend since the 10th grade gave me this really interesting gem where he said, Courtney, you're really good at taking advice. But then along the way of taking the advice, you tend to drag people with you as you learn. Right? It's not as if they're in the car with you comfortably in the passenger seat. It's like you tied them up by the feet and you're dragging them behind your truck as you're figuring it out. And it was advice, right? It was, in a sense, a weed, right? Like, if you think of things that you need to dig up and take care of the root of and get it out of your life, it was a weed that I needed to be aware of. And it hit me dead in my chest and was like, ooh, this can't continue. Like, I can't drag people through my self-development. I can't master myself by stepping on the backs of other people. I have to do this work on my own. And I have to figure out how to do it while still remaining in community and in that safe village that I tend to desire to create for people. And so I'd say post 33, the relationships that I've been in up to and including the relationship that I am in now, which is extremely healthy and prosperous, because not only am I patient, I know exactly what I want and how to present it. And I have been cultivating that for time just to get to a point where it's like, shout out to Chief Sekou Olaje, our Oluwo in the Sheshe tradition. I no longer ask for people to convert to my principles. I don't even ask them to learn my principles. I just show up as the person that I am in my principled form. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. If you want to take the time to learn it, great. If you already have those principles, which is kind of what my relationship with my partner is now, it's an amazing and fascinating journey to be with somebody who shares a completely different lived experience, completely different religious background, completely different familial construct, but our principles are the same.
Right.
So the shadow work, in a sense, paid off in that regard.
I hear that.
Yeah.
That's a good crowd question. And that's probably going to be the last one that we could source out before we got to close it. But how did, to the viewers now, like, how did your failed relationships help you identify your shadow aspects?
It's a beautiful one. How did your failed relationships help you identify your shadow aspects?
Facts.
Jumping into that one.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, exactly. I guess I'll tag team it and like complete the circle. For me, it's definitely my penchant towards like resentment. Like, I didn't realize how insidious of like a personality detail that was for me until I did. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like the combination of not, I think pre probably 31, 32, not being self-aware enough to realize what boundaries I needed in place. And so having situations where people stepped over these invisible boundaries that weren't actually communicated because that there were levels of need that I didn't become aware of, and furthermore know how to effectively communicate and maintain.
Expectations.
Right, that lovely word. And so like I would get upset or offended or feel taken advantage of to some extent without realizing that, like, okay, well, how are people gonna do things that they don't know that they're supposed to do? And then by the time they find out, it's like I'm already up here with it. So like patience is non-existent. It's
You
like,
can't even catch up. Yep.
right, exactly.
Yeah. And now I resent you for going slow. Yeah,
precisely
that one right there, man. I spend a lot of time with that one because when you do get the opportunity to do differently, you then learn, oh, not only do I have to teach people how to care for me, teach people how to honor me, right? Teach people what I mean by respect. You also got to learn it for yourself because most of the time you don't actually know because you've never experienced it.
And you can't give what you don't have.
You cannot give what you don't have. And so you have to go through that journey of being patient with your own self and your own understanding, where it's like, I'm angry and I'm not necessarily sure why. And I know you contributed to it in some way, but it's not your fault. It's mine.
It's not actually on you.
It's not on you.
Me. I didn't properly equip you with the tools to be in partnership in the way that I needed at the time. Like how right? Like, all right, we going to the store. Well, which store? I just start walking down the block because I know where I want to go. Well, there are 5 stores within the 6-block radius of here. Which one are you trying to get to?
Yeah, man. That's it. That's where we at. Ooh, we got one in here.
Ooh, Mohammedan.
Hey, Mohammedan, what's up, brother? My failed relationships failed because I was always the one that initiated. I was never invited, which made me feel like I didn't belong and just kept
butting
in. Whew. I gotta let that breathe for a second. Man, that, especially, I will say this from the perspective of those who take the seat of the masculine position in the relationship, right? Safety, protection, keeping people in a certain space, trying to make sure you take care of everyone can often leave you in a position where you feel great about doing it and people trust you and love you and thank you, but nobody's learned how to invite you. No one's learned how to give you the same thing that you give to everyone else.
Where's the me for me?
Where's the me for me? We've built on that several times over this season and this past year.
Right.
And of course, if y'all don't know, a lot of the episodes we recorded for this season, we recorded earlier in the year, edited them and put them out. So like we're watching ourselves in our own development in real time. And it's a beautiful thing. And to that point of like, where's the me for me? From that masculine seat, the one gem I would give people is there's no God for God. If you put yourself in that position of the one who is taking responsibility of the care for others, and you're taking that on from a perspective of your principles and your belief, there will be a large part of that journey that is,
it's going to feel unrequited.
And it's going to be lonely when it happens, because there's no God for God. There's no one that God goes to when God feels like they're having a bad day, but still has to love, take care of, and make all of this work for us in that sense. And so not to say that we are God, but in the part of us that is God-like, right? The God that lives inside of us, some people have to do more. Some people have to do that more than others. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Especially if you're the one who's deciding to take leadership and be like sovereign number one and say that like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is where I like to go with you in whatever capacity that is. It's like, all right. Oh, prime example, back to business. The paradox of leadership wanting like their team to give as much of a shit as leadership does about the goal. It's like, how do I get my team to get on my page? And it's like, well, you kind of can't. Like, it's not their job
Their
to
job.
to see the vision the way that you do. That's why you're there. It's your
you're
job
there.
to make sure we all stay on the same page.
That's right. Yep. That's exactly what it is. We're going to bring this last one up by Stefan. Not understanding and communicating wants/needs. The slash between the two is the principle. Ooh. And minimizing/mixing and matching wants and needs to make it
not fail.
Yeah, that sounds like a whole lot of suppression. You know what I'm saying? Like, ooh, I know I need this, or I know I want this. And I'm very aware that this person does not have the capacity to give it to me. And so therefore I will push it down to keep this thing floating, because if I bring it up, it's going to completely overload them. Yeah, that's
plus one. That's funny enough. That goes hand in hand with the resentment piece, because depending on how long you draw that out, like you got to see that and be like, all right, this is where you are. Do I still want to be in communion with you in this way?
That's right.
Right. Because then I'm back to what we just said. Like, there's no God for God. Like, if I'm continuing to rock with you in this capacity, I'm also signing up for the role and the associated like energetic output of sustaining most of this with my own energy. And if I'm not cool with doing that, then I should probably like pull the plug on this now and like fall all the way back.
All the way back. Yeah, and that's a tough one, because like we say, every choice has an invoice, but that's a choice where you very rarely can determine or quantify what the invoice will be. You know what I'm saying? Because like you can't determine if the person is going to give you things that you can actually carry, or if you can develop the capacities to carry in real time. Case in point with that, when you're looking at having a child, right? What happens to the balance when you realize you're pregnant every quarter or every trimester, you know, so to speak, in that sense, then when the baby arrives, and then roughly for the 24 months after that, is almost like a bouncing ball of emotional transition. Because
yes, it is.
Yeah, and I know, you know, I'll let you jump in on that one because you were in the throes of it, so to speak.
Right.
But yeah, that one is the one that comes to mind the most for me with this conversation that we wrapping up.
Man, listen. I think it's I don't know, because like pregnancy, there's a generally fixed time frame, right? Like, you know, it's gonna be around 9 months ish. It's really, you know, 40 to 50 some odd weeks. There's a range, right? There's no one size fits all, but I look at something more finite, like, and less fluid, and like the standardized education system we have, right? Like you go through school and it's like, you know, every year there's going to be an event that leads to an immediate succession of progress to a next level. Now you have people who, you know, fail and got to redo grades, but you know, like, all right, we have semesters. So like every 9 to 18 weeks, we're getting audited for something and there's going to be a transition. Every calendar year, I'm going to go from 9 to 10 to 11. You have those like isolated cases of people who skip a few steps or people who need a bit longer. But the majority of that bell curve progresses every year. And then you leave formal education, like you're not in college anymore or post-grad, whatever, and you're out. Like school has finite rules in a specific system that you can't really wiggle around with that much. You can find creative ways to engage with it, but that structure is that structure. Then you get into life. And you have to set your own benchmarks. Like
there are no rules.
Yeah, right. Like this developmental stage from 10th grade to 11th grade, like metaphorically speaking, could last 4 years. And that doesn't necessarily mean that like you're failing. It doesn't even mean that you're doing anything wrong. That's just life. You can follow all the rules and it still blow up in your face and not go the way that you planned it.
That's it. Yep. Very, very true.
Yeah, man. Now we are here.
Yeah, y'all. That hour went quick.
And you haven't even had a chance to talk about Esther Perel yet. That's why
I know. But we gonna throw that into the gratitude, attitude, and latitude, as we often do at this time. So first and foremost, when we talk about the paradox, I will say from my perspective, the first time that I really was able to digest this term and learn about it was through a book by Esther Perel called Mating in Captivity, where she gives examples from all of these different. Esther Perel is at this point, world-renowned relationship psychologist and therapist, and the book is full of good lord, full of all of these different.
It's all full up.
The book is full of all these different examples of relationships and people that have come to her for therapy with all of these different, really unique and exciting and fascinating and challenging paradoxes. And it's all based on the paradox between love and desire. Love being the thing that keeps us safe, that is about consistency, that is about the knowing, right? When we're in love with someone when we're in love from a relational perspective in a partnership, the more you know about this person, the safer it is. But then there's this desire part over here that usually kicks off in the beginning. And it's all about the unknown. It's about what could happen. And in relationships, we constantly have to balance the paradox between love and desire. Because the more we love, the less we actually have the opportunity to desire unless we actively create it. And the more we desire, the less we actually feel safe because it's about the unknowing of it. So fascinating, lovely book that has helped me so much in relationships. Highly recommend it to y'all. So that would be my initial point around that. With regards to our gratitude, and Brother JD, I think your gratitude jumps in that space as well with our good friend
Brene Brown.
Renee Brizzy.
Yeah, but I mean, look, she's you with it. Also, she's from Texas, which I think is great. The Unlocking Us podcast. I like how she approaches the angles of like, who are we really, and what do we think we're asking for when we engage with anyone towards any task, right?
Yeah.
The paradoxes of leadership and how like the same tools that make you a highly effective leader that motivates and engages people can also be the same traits that totally steamroll folks and push them away, ironically enough, when you need them the most. I would like to add on one more special mention for Gabor Mate with the myth of normal, trauma, illness, and healing in a toxic culture, which is another one. I like the way that, you know me, being a nerd, looking at things from a scientific perspective. And like, what is culture? Well, if you look at the definition of what a culture is, it is an environment with certain life forms that have specific needs and function in a specific fashion. And if any aspect of the ingredients or the environment are not sustainable for like optimal growth, that culture is by definition toxic. And so applying that to like a world size level, like, well, what are our inputs and our outputs, either in the communities that we build or in the societies that we inhabit? And oh snap, well, toxicity is actually everywhere. And so now like the whole toxic culture trope isn't just it's not a hot take, you know, really popular hashtag, but we can actually look at what constitutes the environments that we create and subscribe to and run a better catalog on what are we actually contributing to, starting with ourselves and then extending it to our communities.
The community. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
That's our gratitude for today, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, pronouns of all ages. Next up, we have our attitude. JD, you want to take this one?
I mean, honestly, like, embrace the suck. No pun intended. I'm sure if Lex is watching this right now, she chuckled when we use that line because that's how Lex works. Yeah, like ultimately everything that works for our highest good may not necessarily feel good at the time. Some of the substances that are bitter or salty to the taste are actually the most conducive to our health. And yeah, man, the things that crack you open sometimes break your heart first, but they do fix your vision. So,
so that one. And last but not least, our latitude for today. Leave space for extreme outliers to self-correct over time.
What that mean?
When we look at paradoxes, right, there's the stuff that we can control, the stuff that we can't control, and the stuff that we don't even know is in the space of either or, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have to leave
space,
which is literally like everything, right?
Right.
But when you're going through it and you're in a paradox and you're, let's say, for example, love and desire, and you're managing those things well, you're doing the dance and it's like, yeah, me and my partner having a great time. And then all of a sudden they hit you with a, one of those. That could be, let's say in this example, hey, I just got a job opportunity across the country. And you were thinking about in the next 12 months starting to family plan. Mm-hmm. So now you've got another major paradox to maintain management of, and that one's going to take time. And so for me, when I look at this concept of our latitude today, again, leave space for extreme outliers to self-correct over time. This is where patience is the primary principle, because most of the time, if you allow patience to do what it does, which is expand perspective, expand the scope of vision that you have, a lot of times things just self-correct themselves, right? Like they have the job opportunity, but did they say they're going to take it? So all that you're going through up here and in here, like, is you, and it's okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean you need to do something about it. Like, let the natural progression of time determine what you need to do or not do, because, that shit kind of happens to all of us. Aww. We appreciate you. Mr. Witherspoon.
I was really with you until you, Jesus, with the cutlery.
Renner spoon. It's like, no, I'm not. He hates that shit.
I'm done with you.
Oh man, but yes, that is that's our time, y'all.
That's season 3.
We have come here to do a thing, and we have completed it.
I said we did that.
We did it. We did it fully. So we appreciate y'all for coming through on this evening with us. Thank y'all for all the love and support that you continue to show our way. This is the end of season 3. Season 4 is already in the works, and we've got some joyously incredible things coming your way for season 4.
We got to have some fun, because like now we're gonna get to like hang out face to face, talk shit in person.
Ooh, buddy. And invite y'all to come talk shit with us in person too. So thank y'all for coming for this season. We appreciate y'all for all the love and support. And we will catch y'all when we catch y'all.
Indeed. Happy holidays.
Peace and love.